How am I to believe thee, little one, when thine own companion beareth Nidhogg's stolen eye?
Have care, dragon, or I shall gouge out one of yours.
Listen here, you little shit. Greetings and welcome back. This is Grinding Gear. I'm Garrett, here as always with Kyle, and today we'll be having a chat about our experience leveling in Heavensward. So, spoiler alert, we'll be discussing everything in Heavensward up until the Beyond the Clouds quest.
It's booking a mile a minute. We've seen a lot so far, so we're going to do it
compared to the end of A Realm Reborn.
Yeah.
By God, yes.
But just in MMOs in general, in other games, there's this kind of clear a section kind of feel to things. Like Dragon Age Inquisition, for instance. It really felt like you were going to miss out. You wouldn't have as many resources. You wouldn't have this currency if you didn't complete the zone. It's introducing zones at a rapid speed. At the same time, it's introducing characters at a rapid speed. All this to me means there's a lot of toys to play with, but we're a little scattered.
Heavensward starts extremely Ishgard focused, like really Ishgard focused, and we're hanging out with the Fortom family, extended family too, because I guess Harshaphon is like a Fortom bastard, for lack of a better word. It's very Game of Thrones-y.
Yeah, Greystone. Yeah, he's got a placeholder name, classic.
But then, like, there's, again, where we are, we're dealing with, like, Ishgard politics, but we're also checking back in on the state of the world outside of Ishgard and picking up the threads that have been kind of left dangling from A Realm Reborn. And then we're right back into the snowy dragon Ishgardy thick of it by hanging out with, like, Iceheart and Asthenian, which so far has been my favorite part of Heavensward. I'm really enjoying that.
Those changeovers can be a little abrupt, but they feel like chapters, and it's flowing well enough, and I'm just really excited to see where it's all going. But we start out in like classic MMO territory. It's a huge tonal shift. You're going from like politics and escaping the court and getting away to Ishgard and meeting these families and becoming the hero of light, and then straight into just MMO town. Just like big open areas with animals wandering around, and make sure you don't aggro too many dodos.
Are you saying that you're confused by the fact that there is combat in your combat-based game?
It almost felt like that, yeah.
I mean, compared to A Realm Reborn, like, damn, dude, yes, 100%, especially Realm Reborn patch content. I felt like I was never fighting anyone.
It feels like it's been at least like 20 gameplay hours since I actively collected 3 things.
Yeah, I barely scratched the surface of Heavensward before I farted off, like completely side journeying into Dark Knight territory. Like that, I did more of that. I think I was midway through Sea of Clouds, and then I went and did as much Dark Knight I could do until I was basically level 55. On my Dark Knight, and then I came back to it because I was enjoying Dark Knight so much. And so in that way, my personal experience was by the time I got back to spending a lot of time out in Sea of Clouds and getting on the Heavensward Express, kind of being back into what to me feels like a more traditional MMO experience of actually going and fighting things compared to the end of Realm Reborn, where it was just a lot of talking to different NPCs. It didn't feel as jarring because I had just done Dark Knight, which is the whole, oh dude, it's murder palooza over there in Dark Knight Land. And it also, like, it starts off so Ishgard focused that it still felt very Heavenswardy, which makes sense because it's a Heavensward class edition. But I'm realizing this now as we speak. I didn't really think about how refreshing it felt to fight things again, like semi-regularly.
Well, and just taking it down for a moment to that classic adventuring feel. We were off our flying mounts, so we had to navigate the actual land and look at the mini-map, and we got to know the 2 brothers who had unique zones and very unique takes on life.
Are you saying that they're both the worst people imaginable? Because the game gives you an option on how you're going to treat a Manalane. I always struggle with his name. But I don't know about you, Kyle. I felt there was no choice but to be as mean to that little shit as I possibly could be.
I gave him a lot of the ... He was a child lost in his way. And the way he kept flirting with the quest giver, I was just like, all right, calm down. Let's do the adventure. Jeez.
It's definitely the 30-year-olds in us. We just look at that, go, oh, come on, have a little chill, dude. Come on. Questing with him just it made me feel like an awkward teenager all over again.
It made me feel like a professional. Oh. I was the professional adventurer in the room, and I was going to get the stuff done. The Sea of Clouds, for me, was an introduction at night, and I was a little disappointed. I panned across a great vista that had no color, and I had no idea where I was.
I just looked at this and went, oh, this is Dreamcast as hell. And, I don't usually love floating islands, but they're growing on me here. I still think Sea of Clouds, of all the zones we've seen, is probably my least favorite.
It's a little packed, but there's one big change that I'm really appreciating from World of Warcraft, and that is conal sight on monsters. You can walk right behind a monster, and if it's not looking at you, it won't aggro. So while you're navigating these wide fields, there's a little bit of a mini game to it, rather than just, I guess I'll ride as fast as I can.
There is, I originally thought that was going to make me a little more calm, but it doesn't, because I'm like, oh, they're turned around. I can just ride right past them. And then, of course, they always, without fail, pivot and then aggro me. So
sure
it's almost, I almost wish that there was just a standard aggro radius, but that's such a minor gripe. And it's really, I only felt it in Sea of Clouds. All of the other zones we go to, it's real easy to avoid things. But Sea of Clouds is like your first group of bushes in Pokemon Red.
Yeah.
It's just like every 2 seconds, something's getting pissed off at you.
It's packed, and after, we're not exactly epic heroes yet. A Realm Reborn. We've fought some primals. We've fought some Empire. But, really pissed off dodos, cat bats. It's packed with monsters that you go, now really, are you this aggressive? Are you serious?
Now that's, I disagree with you. I think we're amazingly epic heroes. The amount of stuff we pulled off in A Realm Reborn and how constantly shocked and impressed the entire world is, I disagree with you on that. But now we're to where I felt like, oh, we are an MMO town. Because I am in a new expansion and I have defeated some of the greatest evils this world has ever known. And a cat bat has taken my ass to task.
Mm-hmm. You got to go back to work. And that's something that the Fortom family really sets up well, is that you're here to just kind of help out. You're not here to save the city. They don't really want you to get involved. But while you're under this roof, if you want to, do some dishes, if you want to help out a little bit, clean up after yourself, that sounds good.
This is every Western where you're on the run. And a nice family takes you in for the night, but then the posse rolls up to hassle the family farm, and our titular gunslinger is like, "I'll come with you, provide some muscle." And you're easing into the political tapestry that is Ishgard, and I think doing that through the lens of the Fortom family, it worked for me.
Well, and it divides off the count and makes him important. We still get to interact and grow with this family. But his inclusion in the story continues to be a special piece of it. And I appreciate that. We're not getting overly chummy with the person who could kick us out or at some point might eventually be mad at us for something.
Yeah. So it all works out, and it feels like, Alphino and Tataru and just and you yourself as the player character, you're mindful of that. You're trying to be of use. So it all works. And these are all like, I don't know, I'm analyzing the story in a way I normally wouldn't for an MMO.
I was a little lost in Sea of Clouds until we started getting involved with the bird people, the Vanu. And they were just adorable. They had kind of a great Zelda Deku Palace kind of dance to them that they were always doing when they were just hanging out.
I'm right there with you, man. As I said, as someone who's like didn't really play a lot of Final Fantasy, so much of playing through this is reminding me of the Japanese games I did play, and Zelda was such a big part of that. I absolutely got like Ocarina of Time monster vibes from the Vanu.
And then a Primal shows up, and I'm like, all right, like this is my territory. Like, let's keep the bosses going. That's something I love when games do. Like, not only can you see the distant tower you'll travel to someday, but they also really let you know what cool bosses you're going to get embroiled in fighting.
Well, I've got bad news for you. Did you keep playing? Did you keep playing, Kyle? I'm curious.
Oh,
it sounds like you didn't.
It just farts off right there, and we'll come back. And in fact, that's one of the things I really appreciate, because, like I said, I've done so many zones in World of Warcraft where you gotta get all the way to the end, and it's almost laborious. It's a long haul. Doing that whole zone, you're over leveled by the time you kind of mess with your experience. You need an alt to maybe go experience it at level in other areas. It gets messy. I really appreciate that they're like, did you like Sea Clouds? I'm like, well, not particularly. They're like, excellent, moving on.
We'll deal with this later.
Yeah, that was nice.
To me, that was the only time for me that Heavensward felt like it was kind of an abrupt shifting of gears, was because that felt like a big deal that I was then going to immediately go deal with. But at the time of recording this, we still haven't revisited that Primal. Just don't know what happened. Didn't matter. We don't have time for this. There's a trial by combat to get to.
But before the trial of combat, there's an entire other zone you have to go to. The snow zone. The Korthas Western Highlands.
I lumped the brothers together, and the only thing I remember about it is that I was just really stoked that I was in this crazy snowstorm zone, because that's what I wanted going into there. And so you have your choice of where you start, and I almost wish I started there instead of Sea of Clouds, because there was a tonal dissonance between like my expectations and also like my own personal hype. Like I was really excited to kind of play through like the snow expansion, but it's really the dragon expansion.
I went to Sea of Clouds, looked at it and went, well, I don't know. And then went straight, turned around to Falcon's Nest. And I was all about it. Like everything sucked. Everyone was cold and miserable. There was a previous expansion and civilization that had occupied the area. Now, after the calamity had been covered in snow and monsters had moved in. That's what I'm really feeling. I was all for it.
Yeah. I guess it ends with you picking up the trail of Iceheart. So I remember that. I don't remember the reason we were sent out there in the first place.
They want to recover that land, so they are tasking you with just helping out at first. And, sort of surveying, going around, checking on guards. My brain is a little fuzzy because I also did the astrologian quests here, and those were all about like handing out pamphlets, basically. Have you heard of our healing powers? Have you heard of our healing powers? Be like, no, you're heretics, and let me heal you, and you'll feel differently.
Do you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Savior?
The stars? That's basically what it is. It's a comedy of errors, the astrologian quest line.
Nice. So this is where I was happy to see a Primal. A little disappointed not to have fought it already. And so when I headed out to Falcon's Rest, I was just happy to see snow. And then towards the end of it, I was very happy to see that we were picking up the Trail of Iceheart. I really took a shine to the character at the end of A Realm Reborn. As we talked about when we did our End of Realm Reborn video, I was pretty bored through most of the Realm Reborn patch content. But I really liked Iceheart and everything going on there. Just seems like a cool character that is introduced as a villain. And I called it, Kyle. I freaking called it. She's now our buddy. She is now sympathetic. She is not just a straight up villain.
You go to the farmhouse, you go down, it's very culty, you meet him there, the statue's kind of and alluding to the story you're eventually going to figure out. You summon forth your baby dragon that does a little bit of talking for you, introduces you as somebody who has the echo, and you build a little rapport. You're still on two different sides of this faction war, but you have a core connection that allows you to communicate.
Yeah. And it's another case where like we're kind of whisked away from it quickly, right? We pick up that thread, we're like, oh cool, there's a cult, and Iceheart's back, and we're tracking footsteps in the snow, and change places, back to Ishgard. It's a classic Final Fantasy XIV, what's feeling like a classic Final Fantasy XIV segue in the game of I'm going to get thanked by somebody and then someone else is going to run in the door with an emergency.
Yes. Let's talk about the trial by combat. This is where I just love fantasy RPGs. And you gave me what I wanted. I didn't know I wanted it. I saw a big city. I saw a lot of oppressive government regime kind of stuff going on, a lot of tradition. I didn't know I wanted to have a trial by combat, but it's exactly what I wanted.
Dude, I'm right there with you. I felt the same way when when it got announced and they explained that Alphino and Zaru, they've been charged with this, and we allow trial by combat in here, and Alphino can throw down, but what do we do about Tartaru? And they explained that she can name a champion, and I'm like, yes, choose me, and of course they choose you, and I'm just like, yes, I just want to go kick some ass. And dude, again, this dovetailed so nicely with leveling a Dark Knight, because the start of the Dark Knight stuff, it's all about like, yeah, Ishgard's kind of effed up. The guards are kind of jerks, and they really abuse their power, at least some of them, and definitely in the lower levels. And so like playing that in combination with this, it was just this nice big smorgasbord of Ishgard ain't all what it's cracked up to be.
I enjoyed walking in there as a paladin. The story doesn't really support it, but I looked really good doing it. And any part of this game that wants to endear me more to Tataru, I'm frankly all for.
Yeah, she's really coming to her own as a character that I enjoy, and she wanted to stay behind and hang out in the bar.
Yeah,
you know, I like the cut of her jib.
Well, and that beat plays directly in. I mean, we save them from their fate of execution or banishment or however it may have gone. And then they inform us that Raubon's been found.
Yeah, it's this is what I call the middle section, just through the focus of what we've played so far. And it really does feel like that, because it's this kind of overarching check-in with like the major powers within the story to this point. Because suddenly we're picking up threads from the end of A Realm Reborn. And it's like, we got to go find Raubon. They don't say I just say Raubon. It's so much easier for me to say. As I said at the end, when we did our Realm Reborn talk, I always liked Raubon from the get-go. But the fact that the quickest way to my heart is to cut some dude's arm off and have them keep fighting. Raubon just keeps getting more badass. Raubon is a full-on action hero at this point in Final Fantasy XIV, and I'm so very glad that, well, besides Merlweb, I guess Merlweb is the first person we checked back in with who informs us kind of the state of the world and what's going on with Raubon. But then I'm really glad that we go and save Raubon, because I'm glad he's back in the fold, back in the picture. It didn't take that long, even in Heavensward, Kyle, to pray return to the waking sands.
That's fair. It was a really good reuse of Halatali as the set piece with the poison gas, and Ilberd shows up and he makes an interesting speech about how we don't really understand him, which is a nice touch to complicate his character after he said bowls so well in his previous speech.
Yeah, this is where I was still getting over new voice actors, by the way. It was like suddenly Merlweb sounding completely different was like, whoa, this is a big one for me, and Ilberd as well. Raubon, I didn't really notice it with.
Raubon, I kind of miss the old act. I miss both their actors, actually, a tiny bit. I think the new ones are more skilled, but...
Yeah, I think I straight up preferred old Merlweb. She had she sounded older, like all the time. And you can kind of hear it in the new voice actor, but I don't know. I just had a crush on her. Let's move on.
Well, I mean, if you had a crush there, I've, of course, talked about Midriffy and how I want her to, be awesome. But Tally showed back up. Miss Walker, Yugiri. Again, a nice little push toward, I really want to try out that rogue, that ninja business.
I mean, she just looks cool every time she does something. Her and Thancred, dude, give me knives classes, I guess. I haven't played a single class that does knives or daggers, but every time there's a dagger or knife wielder showing up in a cinematic, I'm just like, I want to do that.
Yeah, they make a good look of it, plus with all the smoke bombs, though. Ilberd's bomb is like flashbang when he throws it down and you're like, oh, that was inconvenient. And then he's just running away in the background.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad I laughed during that too. I was wait, you're supposed to be gone,
right? Just like disappeared stylishly.
Yeah, that was just it was an interesting way to check back in. I think a lesser game would have just been, hey, go talk to Merlwyb. Merlwyb will tell you the state of the world, and we won't show you the state of the world. And we get a little bit of both. Merlwyb kind of does a check-in. Here's the state of our world political system, but then we also go save Raban and, get to fight Ilberd. And I'm a little disappointed we didn't kill him right then and there. I was kind of expecting that to happen, but whatever. He's a right bastard, and I'm okay with them keeping him on the playboard a little longer. Yeah,
then that faction would become a whole thing. I'd like to deal with all of the blue dudes.
The Crystal Braves, Kyle.
I want to deal with that all at once because they're all filthy traitors, and if we just cut off the head, then more heads would grow. It'd just be messy. So I'm okay with him getting away. What was more confusing to me was we leave and there's a mysterious stranger who says, I have someone you need to meet. And I don't remember that. I would have remembered that silly hat. I don't know who Dulala is or why I'm talking to them.
I just assumed they were a new member of the syndicate we never met.
Okay, sure. Fine. Well, they tell us Nanamo lives, which is great. And, very anime. She's not truly dead.
I just assumed she was dead. You even made reference to this in our Realm Reborn talk, and I just didn't even get into it because I'm like, oh, Kyle's just wrong. I'm not going to mention that I think he's wrong because he's just so wrong. And you weren't. You were right. She was anime dead, which is to say alive.
To me, it was going to happen even more so now because Raban was alive. He had no reason to live as a character if Nanamo was dead for good. So now he has purpose, he's filled with justice, and we get to enjoy that character arc. Otherwise, it would have just been sad, frankly, and unfun.
So he murdered someone in cold blood for no good reason?
Well, no, they didn't know about, the Syndicate didn't know about Nanamo's plan to abdicate the throne. So they knocked her out and have now puppeted her as alive, and they take over the government.
But wait, wouldn't they have to know about her plan to abdicate to do that on purpose?
Well, I think they just wanted to knock her out with poison, so they would, now that you say that, I'm not really sure. Either way.
Because I think they did because her servant was in on it.
The servant would have known about the abdication. But that's an interesting point. I do like that idea that, Raban might still be in the wrong for straight up murdering people if they didn't actually kill. So then we enter a weird sort of middle bit where we get an extremely important update where Alphino finally puts on some cold weather clothes. Thank you, Tataru.
Yeah, his new outfit's way cool.
It is very cool.
And also climate appropriate with the long coat. This whole section's, that's a fine update. Also, by the way, Sid had new clothes when we ran into him in the Sea Clouds. So we're getting wardrobe updates.
Yeah, that looks good. Everyone's looking good, including me.
Yeah. Even the evil, maybe not evil, totally evil bishop. When we get an audience with the bishop finally, his kind eyes, he smiles. And I think they actually did a good job animating it, unless their intention was for the smile to look evil, because I thought it was like a kind Dumbledore expression.
Yeah, no, he had a very soothing voice. He seemed to be in control. He removed his guards from the room, was like, you're the warrior of light. Here's my plan, because we're both up on what the Asians are up to, and I'm a cool guy. And you're right, that smile was kindly. And the eyebrow wrangling of those graphics have to be intense. I mean, it's a feat that subtle emotions can be communicated through a video game face. And I'm pretty cool with this. He seems like a really smart guy.
Then they throw it all out the window by showing us the secret meeting of his.
The secret meeting is with his guard who transforms into a armor hand. It's not like we see anything. The guard, it just says my allegiance, and then shadowy mists the place.
Well, more importantly, they talk about not letting the Ascians know what they're planning. So I get this vibe that the bishop is just playing both sides. I think he's lying to us, and he's lying to the Ascians.
Yeah. And then it gave me the feeling like he was playing a third side, too. He's trying to pull some, like, 3D chess thing, and it feels like it's all just going to come crashing down around him.
I think he's making his own power play.
Yeah.
Is the vibe I'm getting. He's trying to keep both the Ascians and us, the player, and our posse happy and not considering him a threat. And I don't know. I'm getting a Shadow Gaius vibe from Mr. Bishop.
Right. It makes you wonder what his power is that he feels he can play all these different fields at once.
Yeah. I mean, he's literally a religious leader, right? So definitely believes in a higher power and probably his relationship to that higher power.
Oh, yeah. With that beard, he can fly. Absolutely.
The bishop fight will be a sequel to the striking tree.
Yeah. A little less beard this time, but still basically mechanically the same.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at on the bishop. I'm just like, I think this dude is just up to no good and lying to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, he is, king and bishop. He's got a lot of titles. But after these many asides and MMOification of our quest line, things kind of settle back into Final Fantasy XIV normal with just some straight up buddying around. We got all our friends together questing across the land, and this was delightful.
Yeah, this was as I mentioned, this is my favorite part so far of Heavensward. I really like Iceheart. I really like Estinian, and it's not that I tend to not like religious zealots, but I like the character, I like the archetype of a religious zealot in my fiction. It works really well, and Estinian is a great example of that. And bequesting with these two like diametrically opposed characters, it could be annoying, but I find it really charming and pretty damn well written.
Oh, yeah, it's basically the writers with their two action figures just hitting each other on the head. It's such a great setup with Alphino being the quest giver, the middleman who's really propelling these two characters that do not want to work together. I just found the whole thing delightful. On top of this, I was impressed by how quickly they brought out the eye. And it's this ring, for lack of a better, tool. It is the one ring that he's carrying with him. And it's basically as if Frodo ran around Middle-earth pissing off Sauron on purpose.
If Frodo was a fighter by trade.
Yeah. And wanted to see just how mad he could make his enemy.
So does Nidhogg have multiple eyes? Is Nidhogg missing both eyes, or does Nidhogg have more than two eyes? Because we haven't seen Nidhogg yet, right?
No, we haven't met the dragons, even though we did have a large lore moment where Iceheart really kind of laid out what the history is that's brought us to this point. We have not met the dragons so far. This is where we get into like legend, and I assume we're going to find out more of the reality of the situation, because Hraesvelgr fell in love with Shiva, but then he ate Shiva so they could be one forever, and then humanity messed it up and ruined all the peace. It was a very, very brief lore window, and it wasn't like the Ascian PowerPoint presentation yet, where they really broke it down for us.
I forgot about those. I didn't mind those. At least they moved. I was a little annoyed during the Shiva thing because I'm like, oh, this is cool, but it's just stills. I wanted it animated.
That's what makes me think, it's the wall. It's the Skyrim walk in and you see the legend on the tapestry kind of moment.
Oh, that's fair. That would have been an interesting way to handle it.
Because once it's in motion, it's more real and can't be, changed.
Yeah. Well, and it's building that sympathy for Iceheart and now Shiva, who are connected, right? Because Shiva or Iceheart becomes Shiva again, which we'll talk about here in a second. But we've already experienced primals that are not inherently bad, right? in A Realm Reborn, it came up multiple times with the Coils of Bahamut, and there's concerns there about not wanting to accidentally start another primal or create another primal. But yeah, Shiva seems very much sympathetic here as well as Iceheart. Now, of course, it's Iceheart telling the story, but I don't get a sense of an unreliable narrator situation going on here. I think Iceheart is being sincere with us.
No, but she's also embodying Shiva, which means there's some sort of deeper connection there. And there's a lot to reveal here. We're still just kind of budding through a big chocobo forest, which is kind of cute, with a big mountain in the background that I couldn't wait to climb.
I loved all the lore that happened in this zone, by the way. You're talking about the Dravanian Forelands?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the lore here, I did not feel really any of the reading I was doing here was laborious, because I was just eating it all up. The fact that they're like, yes, this is where chocobos come from. And I was thinking, my first thought was, how do they survive all the freaking dragons? Because this is also where dragons come from. And there's a line at some point, I think you're talking to the first quest giver you meet that's in the building there, where he's like, oh yeah, well, did you see all the I think kind of stupid looking trees all over the place? Yeah, everything lives under that just to keep the dragons away because they can't see past the foliage. And I'm like, that's great. That's wonderful. And then Alphino's like, why would anyone live here? And they're like, well, because there's chocobos and they trap them and they sell them and that's how they make a living. And I'm just like, this is all great world building. Just pile it on.
Nothing was as great as the Nath, though, because they were just so adorable. I love that they avoided dragons by living in small, smelly, cramped houses, and they just like really lay into it. They also look like Harbinger from Mass Effect 2, so they got that going with the overmind business.
Like Chibi Harbinger.
They're adorable.
They just tick out, and they're so charming. But they're also, I think, a legitimately good monster design. Like, I love that they've got the kind of like cloaks around their neck, and then they turn around and there's drapery, but it's like under their beetle wings. And the way that the carapace on top of their head looks like a hat, it's I love them. They're great. They're a really good design on top of being funny and quirky and kind of charming.
Right. It gives them this simple life kind of feel that they are just scrounging their existence. So when you find out there is a tribe that's basically trying to make itself an empire, breaking what seems like a natural order for these peaceful creatures, not only are you tasked with it in order to continue the main storyline, but you care because it just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and the Final Fantasy XIV, it's good about doing this with the beast tribes. I mean, it's clear. It's also mechanical because, like in A Realm Reborn, you can go around and befriend all of them and grind rep with them and buy stuff from them. But to me, it also works. Like they didn't have to make good stories for why you should sympathize with the beastmen, but they do. And for me, it works, and it really works with the Nath. I like them a lot. And I haven't gone back to mess with the Vanu at all, but the short stint where they show up in Sea of Clouds, I really liked them as well. So Heavensward is really, really landing for me, even in the smaller stuff like the beast tribes. I'm like, yeah, these are the coolest beast tribes we've seen so far.
And their god, the Nath god Ravana, is so, to use the modern phrase, extra. Oh my God, I love this guy. He's Ultraman, he's Power Rangers, he is so battle ready. I'm intoxicated by his presence. I love that he declares himself master of 4 blades, not because he's like good at 4 different kinds of blades, because he's literally wielding 4 different blades. And what an entrance, frankly. What an amazing entrance.
Insert any General Grievous meme you want to here, basically.
Love it. And he's like, do you want to battle too? And we're like, yes. He's like, hell yeah, bully that. I'm all for it. Let's do it. I'll meet you in the arena.
This is the most Dragon Ball Z 2 anything's been. This is just a demigod that just loves to fight.
Yeah.
Just wants a challenge. And then we're also treated to like a primal versus primal fight. We get to watch Shiva fight Ravana. Like, it's so it was great. It was such a nice payoff.
Well, and I really appreciated that the fight scene that we got to watch, which was just fun, used the powers that we knew from previously battling Iceheart and Shiva in her arena, including the various weapons she summons in the extreme mode of that fight.
Yeah, and then they're not overusing like Iceheart's ability to turn into a primal, right? Like we've only seen her do it once before, like you said, and to me, it's like the power of poses. And again, this is something that's very Dragon Ball Z. Is like, oh, I know what Kaioken looks like. I know what a Kamehameha looks like. I know when I see Golden Lightning that Super Saiyan's about to happen. And so when Iceheart strikes that pose and ice starts forming up around her and she like puts her arms straight up, it's like, oh damn, she's going primal.
And then she mentions like not enough crystals, or kind of makes you wonder like where they're not, like, is the cult not really praying for her right now as they're off to battle? Like there is an opportunity there for her to be betrayed, basically left alone with us, and now on our side by necessity.
It's consistently reminding me of fiction that I like and I think is well written, because I think this is a well written piece of fiction.
Some would call it obvious. I say when you go through a giant primeval cave, there's T-Rexes in it, because that's what we all want. And when you visit a giant city, you have trial by combat. Like, just give it to me. When you climb a dragon mountain, there's dragons on it. Like, let's do this.
Obvious, I say sticking the landing,
Yeah.
or effective payoff. I don't know. I don't always need to be surprised. Although I don't know. I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't thinking, oh, we're going to have a primal on primal fight.
No, that was actually, yeah.
Probably should have.
That was great. That was great.
Yeah, but that whole arc, I love this stuff. More Iceheart and Estinian, please. I even like Alphino now. I think Alphino is a much more balanced character that isn't just consistently petulant.
He has to deal with Iceheart and Estidian at the same time, which means his kind of schoolmarminess and directing everybody about has a real purpose. Like, no wonder Yoshi P loves this character. It's the DM's character. He's driving the plot. Otherwise, all the characters would just be fighting all the time. So he's the driver of this car while the kids argue in the back. And we're like in the side seat, we're getting out, we're paying the tolls, we're navigating on the map.
Alphino has real disappointed mother energy.
Yeah.
I was told that I would like it. People that kind of know what I respond to were like, oh, Garrett's going to have a good time with Heavensward. But my God, having it butt up against Realm Reborn patch content, it hits so much. The MMO-ness of it, the video gamification of it it's very welcome, and I'm having a good time.
It's tough to divide up this story, so I know this is likely a rough cut to just say, this is where we got to, here's what we're going to talk about. But saving this all for one we completed Heavensward video would be impossible. There are so many moving pieces, and I'm glad we took a moment today to break down chapter 1. I don't want to call it 1 of 3 because I don't know how many parts there are going to be.
We don't want to pre-plan too much, because like I'm eyeing the next kind of piece of instance content, which I believe is the Eerie. But we might get there and be like, it kind of felt like one big arc and like something we could sit down and have a single conversation about. So it's kind of its own beast. And when we feel there's a big chunk that we really want to have a chat about, that's when we're going to sit down and have another Heavensward progression chat. But boy, do we have a lot of other ideas for videos as well.
Yeah, we did some hard bones. They were good.
Oh my gosh.
Another video, another time.
Tamtara Deepcroft.
Yeah, that was badass.
It was really good. I can't wait to revisit the Wall of Dungeons. I really can't. But that being said, hey folks, make sure you like and subscribe. Ring the notification bell. We upload every Wednesday morning. Take control of that algorithm. Come on, you're watching. We see the stats. A lot of you aren't subscribed, but clearly you're liking the content because you keep coming back. We see a lot of familiar names week in and week out in the comments section. Other than that, if you want to talk to us anywhere else other than the comments section, follow us on Twitter. I'm Garrett Art. Kyle is at Kyle Ferguson. That's going to wrap it up for this one. So until next time, good luck and have fun, everybody.